So, all right, so the application lib folder now has been changed just to accommodate our development. So there's no right or wrong here, uh, and it depends on you as a developer or as a software engineer to define your project structure among your co-workers or among your development team. And for me, myself, this is basically how I would like to have my development folder. So it is easier for me later on. Okay, easier for me later on to work on the project. Okay, so because now I know that all my models, class that related to model will be inside this folder, and class that related to views will be inside my views screen folders. So this is all screen, so easier for me to look. Because when it came later on, when you along the way, when if you don't have proper structure for your project, you're going to end up with a very long file names, classes, and whatnot. So that can be very hard for you to look, search for the file. So it is a good idea to separate. And even inside screens, you might want end up later on with subfolder that handle for each of the screen. But since this is not that very big application, so I'm going to use this folder structure. This is just folder structure. Anything shared inside here, anything related to config, I put it into constant. Actually, you can use mixin, but here I just use simple config class that define server location. Reason being is that later on along the way, when you develop or you move from one location to the other location for development, the IP address of your particular machine might change to a different IP address. So all you have to do is just change this one file, one class only, instead of having to check all the classes that call for HTTP, and then you have to change all the IP address every time. So put it into one place, and then you can just use it just by calling config.server. So that's just the purpose of this config.dat. It can be anywhere that you wish or you want to put, but here I put it the same level inside the view folder, and of course the entry class for this application is here, and everything will be referred through our import section here. All right, so you can see under folder view screens, under folder the rest, you can just straight away see that. Okay, so which folder, up one folder, under folder screen, under folder views or whatnot. So those are basically how I manage my application, project application directory. But that depends how you want to do it. Okay, there's no right or wrong, and there are so many methods available out there. Okay, as long as you understand what, or you properly document what you're doing here, it shouldn't be any problem with this. Okay, this is just a project structure. All right, so now from the main method here, so we have it in the view folder, main and config. So there's only two class here. And config, anything that require constant value later on, that value you never change, or you want it to be like a global value. So we just put it into one file, and we just change the address here. And this is also will be easier for us later on when we want to publish our application. So we want to publish our application so that user can use our application when they install. You just change your IP address here. Okay, change to your domain name. Like for example, my domain name slumberger.https://slumberger.com/. That's it. Okay, so all you have to do is just this one class. It will automatically refer to the server directory. So that is basically the purpose of this. So that's why class is very important. Okay, when you learn about class, why do we need class and how we use class. So class allow us to do at least one this simple example here. you can just make it as a global variable and can be accessed anywhere throughout your project. All right, so for example, our first screen here that handle registration. So basically under screens folder, registration the screen. So now, I'm going to change that. I'm going to add to the config server. So there's no need for HTTP anymore, and the 192 can be removed. And even so, we can just straight away, like in the server directory. So we have my parser v2 slash here. I put it slash already, right? Config. So you have slash there, so which means that there's no need for you to put slash. Okay. So if you remove that, if you remove slash, definitely, of course, you need to add. If you just want to add your server, or might be better, you can just put my parser folder name, my parser v2. Okay, so this is the server directory, and then straight away from there, we can just remove my parser v2 and everything under folder php. Okay, so this is the server directory, and now I just use config.server concatenate. This is actually concatenate in. There are two methods of concatenation in Dart. Either you can just straight away concat two string, or you can just literally do the concatenation through this dollar bracket config.server, close the curly bracket, and then slash. Okay, so that's basically literal concatenation. So now, every time I want to access to the server directory, I don't have to worry much about the server address. Okay, so because I know my server address, if you use a cmd command and then give it a IP config, you need to check every time you move. Around. Okay, so for example, here the IP address in this location given by the router to my PC is 10.30.2.25, so which is corresponding to the 10.30.2.25. But if you move somewhere else, you need to check your IP address again, because the router will assign you with new IP address, might be doing that. So your IP address might change, so you need to update your IP address here, okay, with a new one. So because you cannot connect to your XAMPP here. All right, so now we have that. What else that I updated here? Server directory, config, server, registration. So we haven't yet deals with the response. All right, so we haven't yet deals with the response. So let me open my notepad. All right, so this is our register user.php that deals with the user registration. So the upper section here, this is very, very simple. Call it not page protection, script protection. So we just check for the post. You can check for authentication. You can check. I'm not quite sure if you can use session here. I haven't explored yet on that session to be used together with Dart, with Flutter. I haven't yet explored on that, because if you use session, means that you can better protect your PHP script, so that no other what do you call it, scalper PHP file, they try to access this PHP file and then pass value and try to modify the value. So you can protect through here, but this is a very simple protection that we check if there's any post array or not. If there's any post array with the keyword register, and then we without, because we put not here. Okay, if this is true, and then we send back a response, we create a simple PHP array which will build or we call it JSON data structure that send out status field and with no data, which is null. And then the send JSON response function down here, which is we'll call this function if you're not familiar with Java, with PHP function. So there's a function here, and this function tasks basically to encode into JSON data by using JSON encode function. And then there's an array here. This is just a passing parameter, and then the passing parameter that we pass from here, the array here. So if success, we return success. If fail, we return fail. So that's basically how it is being done. But of course, this is not yet perfect. There's some other requirement that is needed here. For example, you need to implement try and catch. Okay, you need to implement try and catch because our server, our database contain that that secondary key that check for the email. Okay, check for the email, and then if there's any duplicate email try to register, will throw out error. So you need to handle that error. So here we don't have try and catch. So you need to handle try and catch through PHP. So let me try. Forgot try and catch because so many try and catch already available for PHP. For exception. Okay, so here basically one of the example that you can use to try and catch. So you can try catch value if any error that's being thrown by the script will be catched by this exception, and then we can do something here. So let me try to implement that through the through our codes. So I'm going to encapsulate that in this try block, and then close here, and double there. So if there's any exception, will be accept by this. So if you don't want to echo this, and then you just want to respond error, just take this one and then throw here, so that it will, oh, sorry, this one should be fail. It means that something goes wrong with the response. So this is just a try and catch. I believe you have learned try and catch when you during your programming too. Try and catch. All right, so it's very important mechanism to safeguard your codes from error. Okay, so just block it to try and catch. So it will basically catch any thrown error within the statement. So if anything goes wrong here, it will automatically catch by this exception, and this exception will just create a JSON response because we wanted to have JSON response. We don't want error that's been thrown by the system because you cannot handle that. Your application cannot handle error thrown by PHP. Definitely PHP will throw their own error, but you don't want that error. So you want to handle your own error. Either you can just use the object E here and then define the error type if you want to better manage the error that's being responded by server, or you just want to provide a very generic exception that will be caught by the PHP and then throw your own custom response. So in this case, just again the same fail response. All right, so you have that thrown into your PHP script. If you try to register again with the same, let me try to open my local host and to your PHP admin, my password v2db, and here we have double users. So we have one user email. So if you look at the user email here, you can see that it is being set as a secondary unique identifier. All right, so user email, you cannot have the same user email twice. So if you try to register slambaja@gmail.com again, the database will throw a tantrum and then let the server know that this is not okay, this is not going to work. So the server will need to be able to handle this issue. So server will check for the exception and then what to do if there's an error in the execution. So that's basically how we will try one more time, and then it should display error here. Let me make clear my console. Let's say try to re-register again. Say it's just a simple one. The same email. How to use this? All right, use the same email, phone number, anything. Password ABC123. Password the same again. ABC123. Let's see if the try and catch error works. Register. Yes. It didn't properly catch that. Parse error, syntax error, unexpected token. So this is basically error that comes from database. Line number 26. As you can see, this is line number 26. It's supposed to be cached by that. Oh yeah, I forgot to close that properly. Yeah, there. I didn't close it. You can see there, try and cache. So this is the block that I want to protect. Okay, I didn't properly cache that. All right, clear one more time. And then try to register again. Yeah, there you go. All right, so that basically allows us to cache that error if your database unable to work with the query. So anything goes haywire with the database, your PHP is still able to respond. Okay, this is the simplest version of exception, which is you just throw everything, throw all type of error into this exception. Okay, we call it generic exception. But if you want to, if you're proper developer, definitely every exception that handle or can be handled by the try catch block, you're going to throw that and describe the error so that your application later on will know that this is error regarding duplicate entry, this error regarding string error or value error or whatever error that is available. So yeah, your application will require to do that. Okay, to capture that error through try and catch block. So just a very simple try catch block, which we safeguard this portion of code to make sure that if anything goes wrong through or cached by this block and respond back to the application. Right, so that is the idea here. But if everything goes okay, should be no problem. We get success error. For example, if I add a different email here, let's say abc@gmail, Ali Abu. All right, so that's just data, and then try register. Yes. So you should be able to see success return. Okay, so which means that your database now able to retrieve second data. Yeah, two data now already here. This is user ID automatically generated because I already deleted another true. So it basically jumped to 4. If you want to reset that, you need to truncate your database. You need to provide a SQL command to truncate, and then it will basically reset your user ID back to 1. Okay, but if you didn't reset your database, you will know that it will automatically increment the value if you set this user ID as well. User ID and user email, there are two different things here. The user ID that I use here, the reason is that it is later on, it is easier for me to check for or to implement something like file name. But if there's no use, you can delete that. Should be no problem also because we already set our user email as our unique identifier. So you can use also user email as your user ID. But usually I just use this for the table identifier so that I can easily use that information later on to do whatever that I need for that particular data. Okay, it is much more structured. Okay, so you have numbers instead of string. You have numbers, and numbers basically they are less power, less resource requirement, less memory requirement compared to large string, because string is an object. Number is not an object. Number is a native data. So whenever you use number in your application, the memory consumption will be lesser than when you use string. String is a complete object. Even though you just define your variable as string, but when you use string in your application, string is a class compared to integer. Integer is not a class. Integer is a native number, a native value. So when you assign value, I hope you remember this during your programming one. Okay, you learn about that. But that basically applies when we talk about application performance. Okay, we talk about application performance, we really need to look into what type of variable that we use, which variable type that's suitable for the data. You don't just simply use all the data type and define it as a one things. Like for example, when I use varchar, usually I use for text, but you have to look at varchar as data type because every data type, they have their own memory requirement. Okay, they have their own memory requirement. The larger, the bigger the size, the more memory requirement it requires for every assignment. Okay, so just be very careful on that. All right, so now we have that already. So we need to process this to respond. Okay, so when you have your register user here, register user will send request through this URL and then call up register user.php and pass all this information to the server, and the server will receive this through post array. Okay, so through post array and then wait. All right, so HTTP is what we call as an await, or sometimes they call it as promise. Okay, some other programming language, they call it promise. Sometimes they call it async. Sometimes they call it, there's a different name. Reason being is that when you meet HTTP request, it is, the request cannot be fulfilled based on time requirement. Okay, there's a no promise. It will try to promise you to respond back, but sometimes when there's a problem with the server, like response time out, or the server is unreachable, so that kind of issue, there's so many error, HTTP error or server error that the application will have to respond. Okay, so you have to understand each of these. To be able to build a good application, all these error you need to understand and respond properly. Okay, you don't just simply just throw it away and then rub it under or swipe it under the rug. Okay, you need to know if there's no internet connection, how are you going to handle that? Okay, because you don't simply request if there's no internet connection. Okay, you don't just, because whenever you press the button, will execute HTTP request, but there's no internet connection at all. There's no point of doing that. So your application may hang and then freeze. And that can be very bad experience for user. And you don't want that to happen. Right? So usually the way that we work, we check for the internet connection. There's a package that check for the internet connection first. Okay, we have internet connection, that we can submit. If no internet connection, we let user know, no internet connection, please connect to the internet. Okay, please connect to whatever method available. Connect to Wi-Fi, connect to 4G or 5G, whatever. All right. So handling error is very, very important in application development. You don't want user to frustrate with your application. Once they frustrate, then they no longer have interest to use your application because your application handle things very, very badly. Okay, so do look into that. And what I'm using here, this is just the simplest method. There are many, many other methods that you can use because you need to think like 10 steps ahead. not just like 1 step, 2 step, but 10 step ahead. What if this? What if that? What happen if user do this, or what happen if user enter garbage data, or add any hacking attempts to your API, trying to register user by using a different application. So everything need to be considered. Okay, as an application developer, yes, definitely it is hard to do, but that is the expectation that we are looking for. Okay, the user is looking for. They have no idea what's going on at the back. Definitely, they just know that the application works. But that kind of experience is very, very important. Okay, nevertheless, you have to put a lot of effort into that. You have to practice. You have to know how to handle all these issues. All right, so even here you can implement try and catch. Okay, so Flutter also implement try and catch to check or to catch if there's an error during the HTTP request. All right, even the HTTP also provide, if you look inside here, the catch error. HTTP also provide catch error function to trap error, on error, what to do on error. Timeout, if there's a timeout when the HTTP try to request, timeout. You set, let's say, 10-second max. So anything goes beyond 10 seconds, it will cut the connection and let user know that I'm unable to connect to the server. Okay, there's so many when completed, no search method and whatnot. So those are basically some of the functions available for the HTTP itself. Okay, and you can further encapsulate that through try and catch. Okay, try and catch block. Okay, so you can just implement catch exception here and put everything inside this try catch. And then what you want to do if there's an error here. That's it, try and catch. I believe you've learned this before, try and catch. You have try and catch block, and this is where you apply it. This is where you implement the try and catch block. Whatever that you've learned throughout your programming 2 or programming 1 about try and catch. Okay, there's also exception, so you can implement directly to the class. So the class itself that handle the exception. But usually, if it's just involve a small portion of code that you will foresee that this section code will throw error. Okay, just block that. Put it into a block. Okay. All right, so that's one. Can just, let's say here, just print out e.toString, just to print out error through debug terminal, or you want to return or whatever that you want to do, you can put it inside there. All right, next, we're going to look into handling the data. All right, so once the JSON data response return back from the server, how your application will handle that data, JSON data. Off. It's the dialog, development, you love from pre-processing database. Okay, here, application response. All right, so you have this. Okay, so yeah, you receive your application, receive status, success, data, null. Okay, because there's no data. So usually when we return back response to the application, we return in JSON data. Why? Because it is much easier to process. Definitely you can just return string, or you can just use comma delimiter or whatever data structure, even XML. Before this, we use XML. But JSON is much better in terms of doing this, return API response. So once it return this data, so your application will require to respond. Will require to process, process the data, JSON data, and then understand the response. What to do when you receive this, what to do when you receive that, right? So usually here I use toast. I've talked about toast before. So toast basically will toast dialog. I use progress dialog. So later on, I'm going to implement progress dialog. Progress dialog basically just a mechanism for user um, to wait for the process to complete. Okay, so usually when you press a button, you want to log in or you want to access data, a progress dialog or a dialog will be appear, circling, waiting, so that you cannot do anything else. Okay, you have to wait for that process to complete. So usually we just use progress dialog so that there's no other request. There's no other request made by the application unless that's what you want to. Okay, sometimes this is also true in real-time application, because in real-time application, the application will request data in the background as a service. Okay, we request the data as a service and keep on asking the database if there's any change back and forth, back and forth, the happening all the time. And you can use face. Okay, you can move around, with the application interface. But usually in a client-server application, we try not to do that, because client-server application, this is an expensive process. Request to the server, server process data and return back. Real-time database is different, because real-time database, for example, like Firebase, they provide an open channel, okay, two-way communication channel that exists for you, but at a cost. For example, like Firebase will allow you to have 100 live connection for free, but if you want to have more than that, you have to pay. Okay, so if for a client-server application such as us, definitely for now should be no problem for you, because your server is in your own PC, in your own computer. Every request made, like, it is nothing, very fast. But later on, when we are dealing with a web hosting, when we put our database in a live production database, you will see that the performance start to degrade because your database no longer here. Your database is somewhere in the internet, in the cloud. So there's no guarantee of communication between your application to the database. So you have to be able to handle that. You have to be able to understand that. All right. So you can see here, all right, so we have all the HTTP requests. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is to decode. So the server will encode the multi-dimensional array into JSON data format. And then when your application receives the data, they have to decode, encode and decode. Means that they have to process the JSON data and then make it into a much better, a much accessible data, usable data that they can know. So here the way that I implement is by using the JSON and decode, which is available. So as you can see here, everything happened inside response. So let me just comment on that. So everything should be here inside the then function. Okay, so the then function will receive a response. So this is the response that coming from the server. This is the response. Everything will be dumped into response object. Response is an object. So once you have this, you can see var. When I put var here, var means that undetermined data. Okay, only determined upon assignment of the data. So it's much easier. So once you have var data, we have a function called JSON decode. So JSON decode is basically a decoder method available in Flutter. So all you need to do now is just import that. Import .convert.library, which allow us to decode the response that coming from the server. Okay, decode. So once you have that, this response, which is this one, this object here, one of the object basically response.body. Okay, one of the method from the object is body. So this is when you respond body. But if you want to make it even proper, you can check the response code. So for example, like if response dot. You can see that's dot is redirect, persistent connection, body byte, content length, header, request, status code. Okay, so one of the method available here is status code. Status code usually provided by HTTP header. Whenever it return back the response, you will receive this status code. For example, 200. This is the most common status code that you receive, 200. 200 means that it is a success. Okay, everything good, everything okay. So you want 200. You don't want 404. 404, what is 404? It's not found. Okay, or 500, internal server error. You don't want that response. So you want to check first the status code equal 200, which means that you have the right response. Okay, so once you have the status code 200, then you can process the data. Right? You can further process the data, JSON decode response.body data. So we dump everything from the response.body. The body that comes with the request, all the data is in there, .body. So once you have that, okay, you can see the body there. So I use both also. You want to have data equals success, which is the response from the JSON data. So here I combine everything into one. So I do it before because I want to get data status. So that's why I do this. I put it before, not after. So I need to go back. So instead here, you can actually get the body even though it written error, or you can do it inside here. All right, so I believe I can do it after. So get the data first and do N. So retrieve the JSON data, which is status equal success. All right, so this is the logic here. If the status code equal to 100, N. So you need to have both N. And the data status return success, because sometimes we will return fail. When it return fail means that something going on there. Okay, you don't want fail, you want success. So anything success, do it inside here. So inside the if statement here, so what do you want to do? If success, let's say I want to toast. Let me take my toast code there. Just want to have a toast down there. Copy paste. And then go back down here, put it there. Okay, so just a simple toast and then put it success. Else, put it fail. That's it. All right. So which means that if I receive status code 200 and data status from the JSON data equal success, means that it is a success, and then display to success. Other than that, I just throw fail. That's it. Okay, so let me try that. So if I try to re-register again with the same account, it should throw fail. Register, yes, fail. Okay, because I cannot re-register abc@gmail.com because that email already been used or already been registered in the database. So I can no longer use that and it will throw me fail. But if you want to properly handle that, let's say like you want to have email is or this email already been registered, or this you need to change a different email, or you want to verify your account. So whatever logic that you want to throw, so this is where you can play around. Okay, but as simple as it can be, just throw success or fail. Because sometimes you might not want to throw any hint what's going on at the back. We just say it is fail. What kind of fail? Yeah, definitely you can. But usually for me, I just throw fail. I don't want to provide any other hint for people to know what's going on. Reason being is that security. Okay, if people know that something going on, or the email is already available in the server, so they can use that email to try to hack into the database. So you don't want that to happen also. All right. So those kind of things that you have to think ahead. You have to understand but if there's a need for that, should be no problem. Just use it if there's a need. So that's why this should comes from your design team. If the design teams, they want this feature, definitely you need to implement that. Okay, but if for security purpose, we just throw everything into fail. Okay, just fail. What kind of failure? We don't let user know unless it is necessary, right? So that basically how we handle data. Just very simple. As you can see here, var data, JSON decode. So now you can use data, which is basically status here. We want to use data status. Or if you want later on data, but we haven't yet passed any data, no data. So there's no need for that. Unless for login later on. For login, we need to use data, user data, which is will dump everything into that. Okay, but that for later. So very, very simple process to do. And if you want to throw progress dialog, you can throw progress dialog by using end dialog package, or any other package that you like to use, which allow you to have, where's my progress dialog here? Oh, no progress. I didn't put the progress dialog here. But the code here shows a progress dialog if you wanted to. So this is just a subtle interface or user experience so that they know that something is going on. You don't let user know, you need to let user know that something is going on when user click on that button. So you throw progress dialog so that user will wait for that. If you don't throw anything, you just click button and then nothing happened. Actually, you're doing something, the application is doing something, but you didn't throw anything. You didn't let user know any status at all. So that is also another bad user experience, UX, right? So always let user know something is going on. Okay, when you're doing processing, or if there's any background processing, and this is also another important things in the application. Sometimes when people mistrust the application, okay, you can develop application that can run in the background doing something, but user have no idea that we are doing something. Okay, you are, let's say, like you are taking data, or connect to the internet, connect to the database, or doing something fishy at the background, that can be very, very dangerous. Right? So this is very simple process to handle data, which is through the JSON decode. So once we completed our registration, right? So this is the registration process. So now we are into log in. Okay, so once you register, but one thing that I forgot to mention about the mail function, okay, because here there should be one function that I put before here, this one, send mail function. All right, so send mail function used in this application to verify user. Okay, but for now, because we don't have yet our server, okay, we don't have yet our server hosting to be able to reset our OTP here. Usually, the way that I did is that the way that I do, when user is given with their OTP when they register, so this OTP will be sent back through their email. Okay, will send back through their email because this is a totally random 5 numbers. Send back to the email with the link, and this link, when user click, it will verify user and reset OTP into 0 or 1. Okay, so once reset, whenever user try to log in, the login, even though you have your password and whatnot, but if your your one-time password here is still unchanged, they will unable to log in. Okay, this is just to make sure that we have the right email. Sometimes when people just enter like abc@gmail.com, abc.abc.com, any like emails with a false email, and you still allow user to log in, that can be very difficult if you want to use that email later on for verification, or if you want to use that email later on for contact. Okay, because it is not a valid email. So you want to have a valid email, so you will be you're going to use the send mail function that only provided through a web hosting. Okay, you can only use web hosting to be able to do that and send an email link, or you can use like numbers, and then you can just use a button pop up and numbers, enter that OTP to reset through your application. That is up to you. But usually we just provide a link, and you have a verify.php, like for example that use the OTP, compare with the OTP from the database. If it is matched, reset OTP, and then allow user to log in. Okay, so that is just a verification to verify user email. Or you can use also phone, SMS, but that will require money for you to pay. For example, the one that I used before, SMS gateway, the one that I use, Malaysian SMS gateway. It has been a while since I used my gateway. So you can see there, $0.0185 per SMS. So it involves money. Okay, if you want to use SMS verification. So every time you receive SMS, that SMS actually comes from SMS gateway service. Okay, this is also another service that largely popular nowadays, to verify phone number. Okay, so to verify phone number, but you have to pay. There's no free gateway. There's no free SMS gateway so far that I know. But it's really quite cheap. Like if you pay 10 ringgit, you will get around 200 or 300 SMS, depend on the provider itself. Last time I used 50 ringgit, I can SMS around Southeast Asia. 50 ringgit allow me to SMS about 1,000 SMS. So it's quite expensive in a way, but yeah, that's how it is. If you want to use a gateway for SMS verification, OTP sent through SMS, definitely you need to pay money. Okay, they provided a PHP API for you to use. You need to log in, but I forgot which one that I used before. Malaysian SMS Gateway Malaysia. This one, SMS2. I think this one. Is it? No, not this one. Or even if you want to provide two-factor authentication, also can. Right? So you can use their service. So many of them already. Okay, that provide SMS gateway. This is a business, right? This is one of the business available that you can use. But usually I just use a send mail function. Okay, just send mail function, and then the same. Before this, I use there's an external library that usually used by PHP, but suddenly the library no longer works. So I just use the built-in SMS function by PHP. It does seems to work, but sometimes they automatically, or when you receive the email, it will automatically put it into your spam folder. So you have to be very careful, or let the user know, check your spam folder. Sometimes the email or any auto email that comes in will be automatically put into SMS, or sorry, into the spam folder. Okay, so just, but later on we're going to do this once we reach that stage. When we use web hosting, I'm going to talk about that. Okay, I'm going to implement that later. But localhost, you cannot do that. Okay, through localhost, you cannot do send mail function. All right, so now we're going to move on to the registration, to the login page. So this is where we're going to allow user to log in. So in our application, for our application, we use email and password for login. So that's why definitely we need to design our login page. And here, this is the design of our login page, but I'm going to use the simplest version, which is the same with the registration page. And all I have to do is just, I want to take these two text field, and that's it. All right. So what we need now is another screen inside the screen folder here. So login screen dot. All right. So here we have stateful, login screen, and then implement your stateful widget, material, return scaffold. And then for login, if you want to go for fancy login, you can use full screen, but I'm going to use a very simple login for now. So body, we can start with single child scroll view, and child can use column or center. All right, so just stick with that first. Okay, so we have our login screen. So for login screen, usually I just use whatever that already in the registration screen. You try to maintain consistency through your UI. So if I'm using just a very standard design, so I'm going to try to maintain that standard design throughout my page. So I'm going to use the same design that I have here. So which is, we have center, and then, so I put everything into center and single child scroll view, and inside that we have a cart. So I'm going to do that the same, except that I just want to have email. So I'm going to quickly do that. So we start with center. So you can just wrap with center. And then inside that we have a cart. So this one should be cart. And inside cart you have what? Inside cart you have elevation and margin. Take that. Inside cart, elevation and margin. Right. So you have that for your cart. And then child for your cart is a container. So take that with padding. Close that. Okay, now you have that. And then the same, I wanted to have a form. So child for my container is a form with a form key, but that one later. So you have that. So that's why it is actually, if you get used to this, it is actually very, very easy to do. On just child form. And for a form, there's a required child. So the child inside contain columns with and close that. All right, so now we have our columns. The items, the widget that I want only email. So I'm going to take email here up until here. And one item, controller later. The second one I want is a password. This is a password. So I'm going to take this password, put it down here. Take the password. and dump it into password. So we need a few parameter for email controller. So I'm going to take the email controller. So this one is quite annoying. All right, so take all the required controller. So we have email and password. Take this one, put it into class. And the second one, which is password, take this one, put it into your class. And then we need a validate password. Oh, there's no need for validator here. So just remove validate password. There's no need for validation because we are not registering. Password visible. So we need password visible. Is check password visible is this. We need form key. Put it into class. There you go. No more error. All right, so definitely we need a button. Take a button down there. This is my button down. Yeah, this is a button there. All right, so for button, because the UI here, I will be required by using this remember me. I want to use remember me so that user, they don't have to remember their password all the time. So we're going to use a checkbox, and then we implement checkbox for remember me by using shared preference later on. So shared preference basically allow for the application to store user credential into shared preference data structure. All right, so once we have that, gesture. Okay, I'm going to take this row here. This is for the button. I'm going to take it all until, yeah, the whole row, and then do some modification from there. Right, so this is text form field. This is, if you miss out, just Control F, and then let's see, this is text form field. And this is where we can add new widget down there. Bam. And for now, this one, we can just set to null first. Not EULA, we don't want EULA, we want this one also null. This one not for agree for terms. We want to have remember me. Remember me. And is check, we want is check by default set to bool is check equal to false, so that our checkbox by default false. Right, so we have that basic login page for now. So where do we access login page? We can call this from our when users successfully register, or we can call this from our profile screen. Sorry, not profile screen, from our seller screen. Okay, so seller screen, we can add one more icon button. This is just for us for now. Okay, for now, we just use icon button so that our icon button can allow to access that page. Login form. Okay, so create method for login form. And then use navigator to go to the login form. So not registration, but login screen down there. Save. All right. So where do we access that? We can access the same icon. So might need to change to a different icon. Is there any login icon? Login. All right. We do have login icon there. All right. So that's login icon. Why is the exit icon? I'm not sure, but yeah. The icon is login, but the icon shows here exit icon. But we just use that temporary to be able to access to our form like this. So now we have our simple login form. A very simple login form that will request email. But for password, actually, we don't want to have that to be able to view the password, because if someone else be able to use the application, they can see the password if we allow that to happen. So you might want to remove that I there. So there's no need for us to have that. So that one is under icon, password, suffix icon. Okay, so just remove the suffix icon, one button down there. And the rest, this one should be implement constant. See that? There you go. So, once you register, so we might want to change to login. Okay, that's just a text. So this one is login. And the on press, if you want to make it visible, login user or whatever method names. Create methods, login user, save that. There you go. So you might want to put a separator between this password and down here, this row. So we put separator between row. You can just use size box and set the height. Let's say height to, how is it? I think it's too high. Save. There you go. Should be okay. Right. So that's it for login form. Now user can enter the email, put in the password, and then click remember me if you want to have the page or the screen to remember the credential, and then use login to log in. So you can see how quick that we can develop the screen, the page, without even having to use graphical builder to drag and drop widgets into the screen. Okay, so just a very simple page and allow user to log in. All right, so for the gesture detector here. So if you want to be able to click on this, all you have to do is just add your gesture detector on tab. And then let's say you want to go to main screen, go to main screen. So if I click go back home, it will go back to home. So you can see gesture detector allow your application to implement if any of the widget, they don't have that on tap. If you don't have on tap for like container you don't have on tap, but if you want for that particular container to be able to respond to user touch, wrap that with a gesture detector widget. And then you can just implement a gesture detector and call whatever method that you want or whatever function that operation that you would like to implement. Right, so very easy. Here I just go back to home, which is this page here. Seller registration, login, enter their login credential, go back home. Register now, also the same. If you want to implement register now, all you have to do is enable the on tap for just the detector. On double tap also can if you want to, but usually we just use on tap. Go login, then create the method. Just simple method. Okay, create method down there, and then put it inside your bracket, not to main screen, but to register screen down there. Right, save. So if user click on that, register now, go to register.